All right, welcome back to DangIT Prodcast, a show where we talk about video games, anime, manga. My name is Justin, and I'll be honest, I think we're going to probably omit a manga going forward. I mean, I think out of the entire group of people, there is Anaya, there's Mark, and that's kind of the only two who are like consistently keeping up with manga. There was one that we had brought up that was it called Otter of Flame or something like that. It's a relatively new one, and I could have been keeping up, but unfortunately, I missed that. So, I mean, I'm using like a Shonen Jump, and the way you would go about reading that kind of stuff for free is to just kind of keep up with it. Otherwise, if you miss a couple weeks, then you're gonna need to subscribe in order to catch up on anything you missed out on or anything you just want to like pick up. And the issue, well, I mean, it's not an issue. It's only like, is it $2 a month? $3? It's actually not bad for potentially this huge plethora of like manga that you can like read just on your phone. But I haven't really been doing that. I've been pretty busy. Did I say welcome back, everybody? I know I introduced myself and that was it. But welcome. As you could probably guess, there's typically more people with me. But this time, this was kind of an unexpected type of thing. I'm already like congested as it is. But don't worry, that's not the actual issue. We were going to do this early pod because we're doing some like friend celebration stuff happening this weekend, and I'm usually the one who likes to just move things around just so it just creates far less friction with everybody. So I wanted to move this actually earlier to a different time, and I think that was going to work for almost everybody except for Phil, who's taking a morning shift today. So unfortunately, he's not able to make it. So that means he's gonna have to catch up on a couple of other things within. Well, I mean, I guess the indie world, which is going to be one of the bigger topics of this podcast. But having said that, though, it's going to be a pretty uneventful pod, I would say, mainly because I've been like really locked in on my own stuff. Anaya, who I was kind of hoping would jump in for this week. We don't know what's going on with him. I think it's just one of the things where he's like oversleeping. Fair enough. That's just a very like staple thing that he does. But he went to Evo this past or last weekend, and I was hoping to like just question him on like the experience, how he's been dealing with just preparing for his tournaments like with Tekken and whatnot, and also just all the different things he was able to see and what he could kind of like grab at it. I think that Evo is getting more and more popular, so I think what I was used to seeing like last year is going to be marginally different next year. I know the Evo is pretty much have already established that they're going to have another event for next year already, and that's in June, late June. So they're definitely like kind of jumping past a couple of like they're jumping past a month. So I guess I don't know why they want to like move it, but I can think of a couple other reasons why they initially moved like last year's or I guess this current year, mainly because of the fact that there was too many conventions just overlapping. I remember that they one of the events actually had to get pushed. I don't think it was Comic-Con though. Comic-Con like preps their stuff in way in advance, and maybe like other associations have to like work around those, but what ends up happening is that you know you have like a couple people interested in jumping into different events, but like they like all coincide with one another. Obviously you have to just pick one or the other as like the actual attendee, but the organizers are probably having to take a lot of feedback in regards to that, considering that people have different interests and it can also impact like the numbers. So I remember that I my memory's kind of like boggled up with this one, but I believe that what happens is that what happened last year was that it was just back to back. Like I think I went to Evo first, and then I went to Comic Con the following weekend. It was kind of insane. I personally I love that as like as a vacation type of thing, but clearly that doesn't really work out for a lot of people. That doesn't really work out. So I think what ends up happening is that Golden, how's it going? So what ends up happening is I guess that we don't know what's going to happen with Evo going forward, or sorry, Comic Con. Also, I'm hearing something. That actually being, you guys hear something? No, I think that's happening outside. I thought it was like a low hum, like from the PC playing something, but no, it's actually happening from the outside. But anyway, I definitely want to go to Evo next year, but it's one of those things where I gotta like figure out the budget and everything like that. I've talked everyone's ears off like in other like streams outside of the podcast about this. So to kind of keep it short, I just need to like check the budget for next year when we roll into that. It all depends on like how much income I'm earning, like on the investing part of things. Good news is that we're making quite a bit of traction over there. I've been super locked into that one, especially for the month of like July and August. So I've been far less, especially this past week, I have been far less, in tune with a lot of stuff that's been going on as far as news and whatnot. So hoping to kind of catch up with that over here. But as far as Evo, I kind of don't really want to like disclose. Well, I don't. I guess I don't really want to discuss too many things because I myself am not too passionate with fighting games. Although I will say that Marvel Tokon was there, and I got to see some gameplay. Uh, Everyone was able to see some gameplays, regardless of whether you were actually in person for that or not. I think people had the opportunity to play it though. That's the thing. And I think Anaya had told us like over chat that he wasn't really down to wait. I get it. I get it. I 100% understand that. I don't know. I I've done waiting in the form of, sitting in line for one of the bigger halls in Comic-Con where you're waiting for a panel. And sometimes you got to camp out for that. And I've done that. I'm not a fan of that. Especially if I didn't have like the appropriate wear, especially, out in the sun and everything like that. The longest I've waited, probably 3 hours. I'm not gonna lie. I know that when we were getting the Magic the Gathering like Katara card, that was actually kind of like outside the convention center, like so a lot of people were able to like just line up for that. They were saying about like 2.5 to 3 hours of a wait, and we waited. It wasn't too bad as far as like my legs and everything like that, because usually the first thing that gives out are just like you standing for too long. But I've definitely developed a tolerance, especially just when walking around here and there. So solid there. Sun protection you got to be prepared for, and that was something I didn't. Not this time. Sunscreen, guys. Sunscreen, a hat, and then maybe like a collapsible stool, something that you can just sit on. That's all I was really missing. But I did order something pretty much after Comic-Con. There was like this like full rimmed like sun hat with solar panels like affixed there and like two little fans. It was 20 bucks. 20 bucks on Amazon. I was like, okay, let's give this one a shot and see how it plays out. But enough about the Comic-Con bits. Evo, otherwise, there were a couple other things that were shown off over there. I said Marvel Tokon, but they were also showing off Vi for what was it, 2XKO. Personally, I just want to give my thoughts out there. They gotta release that game. They gotta release that game at some point. This is like how many years? I think this is like the third year that 2XKO has had an appearance at Evo. So understandably, they want to make and perfect this what is I believe a free to play game, right? So I get that. I just kind of want to see like it perform out there because I did get to play it and it's one of the few games that like I actually kind of gravitated towards. They have like a set of like auto combos like most other like games nowadays, but there was also some really cool stuff that I was able to do while I was like playing that. I remember playing a little bit of the beta that was like closed beta shortly after Evo or something like that. And I mean, I was definitely enjoying it. I think they have another closed beta happening in September. It's either that or I think that might be Marvel Tokon. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But I don't know. I've been hearing some positive things about that. I think there were some other things featured out there. I know that Lucy was shown off as far as like her gameplay. I'm pretty sure some other fighting games also had like additional characters being shown off there. The works. But I'm not too well, you know, into that community or into those like particular fan bases to really be tracking that kind of stuff. So I'll definitely lean heavily with Anaya as far as like all the updates regarding that. Um, so regarding to, I should like put a timestamp on that. Ooh, let me do this real quick. I kind of just like jumped into it. I was going to go on like a little tangent, but I guess I ultimately started talking about Evo stuff. Um, but I will say, before we jump into the next little topic here, watch yourselves, everybody. As much as I love going to conventions, just be careful because I heard that some people were getting sick. Evo is still very much so a thing, so just be aware of that kind of thing. I got lucky because with with Comic Con, I only got away with just like a heavy sunburn, and that was on me. But I guess it would also be on me to not be like protected and everything like that. We had the options to wear masks and everything like that, but I was definitely like, nah, I got it. And to be fair, I'm good, but also it's sometimes better safe than sorry. I think when you're younger, you're a little bit more reckless. As you know, I get that. And to be fair, I would be like that. But as you get older, you're like, you find those like mishaps, like getting sick, or I guess in my case, getting sunburned. They're quite the inconvenience. So if there was any way to kind of get around that kind of stuff, I would take precautions for that. Now I sound like the adult. Now I sound like the parent. Where it's like, you gotta put on sunscreen, and the kids are like, I just want to go into the pool. I just want to get in the water. To be fair, I get that. But yeah, okay. Let me go ahead and do kind of a deep dive into Indie World. Indie World was kind of one of the bigger things that happened this past week, and that's not like a lot, but it was something where it's kind of cleared out the table for Nintendo. Nintendo did their partner showcase. They've now done Indie World. Essentially, the only thing that they haven't done is a very specific Nintendo Direct, and what it opens it up to is that and just a general Nintendo Direct, which I think the latter is what they would want to focus on, because outside of like Kirby, right? I correct me if I'm wrong, and Dragon Drive. There's not a lot of other games that have like a release date. We know that second party shown off in the partner showcase, right? Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is coming out in winter, but we don't have an actual date for that. Nor do we actually. Oh, we do have a date for Pokemon, which is October. But everything else, Metroid, like, is that actually happening? Do we have like an actual? No, we don't have a date. So it's just one of those things where I think they need to start to follow up on that one. So I think people were starting to talk about a Nintendo Direct happening next week. I know that people had talked about earlier this week, and it turned out to be the Indie Showcase. So that completely clears the table. Nintendo, it's in their court now to tell us what to expect going forward for the later half of this year, and possibly the first bit, maybe up to March of the following year, 2026. So that's kind of what we have waiting, and I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see and find out. But focusing on the indie world, so there's one game. There was actually, to be fair, give you guys a general, I think the indie world was actually pretty solid this time around. I think I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I think what they've shown off is pretty good. There are just a few games that I'm like kind of really interested in trying out, but the other ones are like I'm just kind of chill with. So I got what I wanted out of it. Mina the Hollower is one of them, from Yacht Club Games. They are exceptionally good at their craft, and they have decided to jump into a title, Mina the Hollower, a couple years back, right? I don't remember the actual date for that one, but I know that Mina Hollower is coming out October 31st, right? Halloween, right? And they have a demo available on the Switch too, and I think Switch One. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But if you guys don't know what that's like, imagine like Link's Awakening DX, or some of the other Game Boy like Legend of Zelda games. It's kind of looking to be played like that, but obviously, as an indie developer, you have a little bit more freedom now that with modern age like game development and everything like that. So you can play to a familiar art style and then start expanding from there. And I think for what they have done so far with this game, I'm seeing a lot of like different like tweaks here and there that just kind of modernizes the experience. I think Anaya has like done quite a bit of a good dive onto the demo that was available on Steam like a while back, and that's available on Tanuki Media. At Tanuki Media Official over on YouTube if you guys want to check that out. Please don't go away though. But I do want to always peep the Tanuki channel for sure. But otherwise, yeah, he had like some pretty solid impressions on that one. I guess what's new about this is the fact that one, it's announced for console, and also the fact that it has a demo available for people to play. I actually downloaded the demo this morning, but I did not give myself any time whatsoever to actually play it because I've just been busy doing all this other stuff. That's why I'm like so bummed out about too. I'm not gonna try to like be a downer for the rest of the pod for this one, but the main theme for this week, aside from just like the indie world and some Evo announcements, the fact that I just been out of the loop, like big time, as far as just like engaging in just video games in general, except for like doing like daily stuff in like the Hoyoverse games, that being just Star Rail and ZZZ. That's all I've really been like doing, and Pokemon Sleep, and a bit of TCG Pocket. Like I played nothing of Donkey Kong this past weekend. It's driving me crazy, dude, because that game is really good. Anyway, let me focus back on to Indie World. There's a couple other games. I'm gonna just kind of go by them, kind of pseudo one by one. Well Dweller is essentially it kind of reminds me of what the premise was as far as, or the setting, I guess, of I have the game over there, but I don't remember the name of it for some reason. It's a beloved game that I was able to play early on and everything like that. Quick tangent. Ibrahim was asking, speaking of Pokemon TCG Pocket, did you see the new image of the art they updated yesterday? I did see the art for TCG Pocket. If you guys are not in the know, for TCG Pocket, they have a new set, and they had two like interactive arts, which have been like redacted because of potential scrutiny and copying and tracing out art, pretty much taking some fan artwork and just placing it as like official bits, which they can do to like a capacity, but definitely not in that medium, not in that form. So they have redone the work. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Personally, I think there's been like other really cool interactives. Just the general illustration of like both Ho-Oh and Lugia, I'm kind of okay with. I also understand that Lugia's hitting the Miraidon like pose. Otherwise, I'm just kind of okay with them. Back to Indie World. So I guess I should reframe this. So Well Dweller is kind of like your Hollow Knight Metrovania, as far as just like, well, I guess all Metrovanias have like a solid level of isolation for the character, and the way I describe Metrovania is like literally how the map is designed. It is pretty much, for more modern players, I guess, if you've seen, I guess either Metroid Dread or just Hollow Knight in general, and you see how the map just expands and has like different areas that layer on top of each other, in whole different biomes located like far west and far east. It's that type of map. I'm not sure if I'm really digging like the movement. It kind of like it's a small gripe. It's like it's regarding how characters move and enemies move. And I saw this in Shadow Labyrinth, where it's I don't know how to properly describe, but it's like it's if you have like pivot points on like different character designs, like from like, let's say you're like the elbow right here, and you just see like movement like this, just like strictly angular like this, and never like anything dynamic or anything like that. That's what it kind of reminds me of. It's like pivot and rotating like joints like for different characters as they move around, and that's definitely an art style, I would say, or like a design choice. And that in and of itself isn't bad. I just don't particularly like it in my perspective, but I can totally like look past that when I'm playing games. Like that's something I can't look past. It's definitely a choice. It's like similar idea of like cell shade being like an art style, and some people don't like it. I love cell shade. I think that just helps maintain like, well, it's unique, but also the fact is that it can help kind of age like a game pretty well like over the years. So I don't know. That's my particular point about it. But otherwise, I think Well Dweller is something you should probably keep an eye out if you're big on Metroidvanias. Neverway is also one that I'm really interested in as well. It kind of gave me I'm not sure if Neverway was the same game that I was going to recommend Sephi, where it's almost like, oh, excuse me, that was a burp. It's what's the game? It kind of reminds me of Stardew Valley as far as like the initial premise, what you see, which is just like an isometric. You're running and you're just interacting with crops and everything like that. But it probably is a little bit more based on how the trailer presents itself. It feels then a little bit more like isometric Zelda, moreover. And I'm kind of digging that. There's a little bit more of like a horror theme going on with that one, and I'm just really intrigued by that without too many jump scares. That's my thing. So we should be solid with that one. I'm looking forward to that one. Hurdling's also pretty interesting too. It's ooh, how do I describe it? I want to say like as far as like the scope of things, it kind of reminds me of like Journey, but you're not like skating around or anything like that. You're kind of like just herding like groups of like really rare animals towards like a mountain in different biomes. As I was saying, different biomes. So there's a lot of like really cool visuals I saw from hurdling. So, and I believe they're same devs who made Campfire a while back. That's a title that I kind of wanted to jump into, but I never really did. But that's a game that's pretty consistently on sale. So if you guys are interested in like different art styles and what the game devs have done before, then yeah, I'd recommend that loosely, mainly because I haven't played that. But yeah, hurdling. That's an interesting one. Um, the next one is this seat taken? Question mark. The title. That's a cute one. I don't know. I'm not sure if like I'd really be like so enthralled with this one, but it's definitely just like a nice side way like or side thing to do. And something that just moving on to the next one, a very interesting bit for this particular indie showcase was indie world. The fact that Little Kitty Big City showed up with a title update to it. Well, maybe title update seems a little bit too much. It is an update, and it seems to be like photo centric. I don't recall exactly all the like particular updates that they're including with this one, but you know what? Little Kitty Big City, still making a couple bits of waves here and there, so I can appreciate that. This has a little bit of promise to it, just as far as like all the particular things you can utilize Switch 2 for. Content warning. Content warning kind of had like a moment of just notoriety, I would say, on like PC, where essentially it's taking what's the other game that a lot of people have been playing through? I never had a chance to play it, but I'm blanking on it. Let me let me see if I can maybe go onto Steam and see if there's any related titles. Um, not quite like Peak. Lethal Company, yes. All right, cool. I was smart to do that. Anyway, and also Repo. I guess there's possibilities for those, but that and Lethal Company are pretty familiar with each other. I guess you could also say Repo as well, but essentially that premise is pretty much grouping up with like however many number of people to film and record like paranormal stuff, some mysteries involved there, and to get out of there and report on it with your lives still like intact. So that's pretty much the general basis of that one. You probably saying repo on console would hit hard, which I mean that's a fair market that they could definitely go for. I think with content warning, I think it's actually a pretty big dub for them to actually be putting themselves on Switch too. They're positioning themselves to be like to get more and more sales, mainly because console sales and whatnot. But also the fact is that Switch 2 has game chat, which I mean that's not like, to be honest, every single other platform, PlayStation, Xbox, have a form of like communication, so that can easily be, quote unquote, easily be integrated into like their own ecosystem. And it just so happens that Switch is a little bit more friendly in promoting that, or at least like heavy on promoting that right now, because I know that's with the partner showcase we had that one campfire thing. By the way, guys, what was it, Chilling by the Campfire? I believe that's the whole government name for that game. If you guys remember that, I actually had posted a short on that one over on TikTok, right? And the devs actually liked that video. uh, and the main thing about it was that like I was starting to laugh at the whole like game chat and how like enlarged your face cam can be. And so I'm thinking that, well, they could try to incorporate that with content warning to some extent. I don't know if they really incorporate like face cam, but they can definitely take advantage of like the chatting portion of that one. So that definitely would work. So I also agree with Abraham as well. Lethal Company would benefit greatly with that. And well, matter of fact, just like be like a nice hotspot for indie devs to like hone in on the Switch 2 for like communication purposes. Because now the more I look at like each of these different games, like Peak, for example, is definitely currently taking people. That's the ones developed by Aggro Crab, right? They made another Grab's Treasure. I think Going Under was another game that they made, and they have a couple games, well, those games on Switch, so they can easily put Peak then onto Switch 2 and actually make that work. Now, as far as I guess facial technology and stuff like that, they could probably see if they can incorporate that, but it's a bit of a tangent. But what I'm saying is that multiplayer stuff is starting to become a little bit more cooperative, I would say, in that type of form, especially specifically within the realms of like Repo, Lethal Company, content warning here, and some other like, I think there's another game as well. Yeah, they have a good opportunity here on Switch too, but also on the different platforms too. So yeah, I know that I elaborated quite a lot on that one. That was kind of like my big focus as far as just like the ingenuity of like indie devs and whatnot. But Ball Pit's another one. Actually, Ball Pit's actually a it seems to be like a shoot 'em up. So I think that's actually within Phil's corner. It's pretty chaotic. It's otherwise, like a bullet hell type of thing where, you're running in a like a fixed track, and most shoot 'em ups are pretty much just like you going left to right, shooting at like whatever's in front of you. And with Ball Pit, that pretty much is kind of the same thing, but you're actually ricocheting all these different like balls, and as like your own like as the shooting aspect of things to nail targets and like rack up scores and everything like that. Not bad, not bad. I Ultimate Sheep Raccoon. I don't have anything to say about this one. It's there. I got a lot more to say about the other title I have right here, which is Glaciered. This is interesting. It kind of reminds me of what could have been the engaging factor. Obviously, it's completely different from it, but what is that underwater diving game for Switch that released literally last year? I'm trying to remember what it was called. And I mean, if you can give me a couple seconds, I could probably like pull it up right now. Switch diving game. Endless Ocean Luminous. There we go. See, this is why we love Google, right? But it's pretty much it's giving me Endless Ocean, but you are controlling a particular monster, and you're just diving for exploration, but you're also fighting actually with other underwater sea beasts and whatnot. Kind of interesting. I'll have to keep an eye out for that one. It looks pretty well involved for an indie title too, so it's like, okay, all right, I'll keep an eye out for that one. And then what they literally wrapped it up with especially with the last bit, I want to like touch up on that one a little bit more, but we have the sizzle reel. We have what was it, Winterboro or Boron? I may have misspelled it over here. I was doing this pretty quick. Undusted Letters from the Past, Tiny Bookshop, Caves of Cud, as in QUD. I don't know how to properly pronounce that one. That's actually an interesting one because initially I read that just by the title, but I actually saw some gameplay, and I'm actually really intrigued by that one. It kind of reminds me of like some of the older computer RPGs, or I guess computer games, where a lot of your interactions with the game and how it communicates itself to you is through like lines of text. You'd have to check it out for sure. Caves of Cud, which is QUD. So definitely check that one out. Strange Antiquities as well. Opus, Prison Peak. I remember there being a title Opus before. I forget what exactly the underlying bit of it was called. Let me huh. There's actually a film for that too. Hold on. Let me Opus game. Yeah, I've been seeing this one a lot, and I think the last time it showed up for like a Nintendo related thing was in 2022, according to what Google's popped up for me. Was it called? Well, the previous game was called Opus Echo of a Star Song, and I'm pretty sure this is like a follow-up title. This is called Opus Prison Peak. Funny that we talked about Peak previously before in a different capacity. Next one is Go-Go Town. I don't really have much to say about that one. So there you go. But UFO 50 is the other one. And this one is actually really crazy. I don't know too much about it. But UFO 50 is, I guess, yeah, it is an indie title, smaller team. And it's essentially smaller mini games packed into like one single title. And for what I've seen of it, it's actually really impressive in like as far as like the detail behind it. I wanted to follow up with that in saying that UFO 50 is also getting like a physical release. I didn't really actually follow that, but you know, myself, Phil, a bit of a Naya, but he can be a little bit lenient as far as like physicals or nah. But let me actually pull it up. That's something I haven't said in a while or heard of. People just saying or nah. Okay, it's through Fangamer. I think Fangamer actually has like another physical that they're preparing, but yeah, UFO 50 for a physical sounds pretty good. I saw that and I was like, you know, this would definitely benefit if they could. Let's see. Oh, I didn't know that Crow Country was getting a physical through Fangamer as well. Let me see if there was any other titles that they were releasing physically. 20XX and 30XX. I remember that. That was kind of like the it's kind of the Mega Man Zero or Mega Man X to Mega Man Zero vibe to that one. I'm trying to see if there was anything else. I think that was pretty much it. I know that I know there was one particular title. Fangamer has like a boatload of other games that a lot of us as a group were like definitely interested in. Let me see if I can actually filter that out. Oh yeah, Pizza Tower. That was a really big one. As well. Oh, they actually have this. Yeah, they're the ones who do Stardew Valley and Little Kitty Big City. So there you go. And Faith actually, and like Amori, and I got the Tunic physicals for them. I think I got. Did I get both Switch and Xbox? I'm not sure about Xbox, but I definitely got Switch. Yeah, no. Oh, also Celeste, dude. That that's probably one of the more impressive like physical games I actually have. Just like in a box. I mean, I'll give Tanuki its flower, or sorry, I said Tanuki, Tunic its flowers, but like that Celeste collection, I think I have it. Uh, huh. I mean, I see it. I have a couple like physical like Switch games that like I regard as like pretty impressive as like a physical bundle type of thing. I mean, I guess on Nintendo's side, what they've actually done was what was it? Nintendo World Championships. I think that was a pretty impressive like physical that they had out there. But yeah, otherwise, UFO 50. Sorry, I didn't want to like digress from that, but UFO 50 for a physical seems pretty impressive. I mean, I would probably. I'm not entirely sure if I'm really down for that one. If I had spare money, which obviously wealth accumulation phase, I don't, with some exceptions. Actually, I will look up UFO 50 and see if there was like a sale over on like Steam, because if anything, I would like to just try it out on Steam at like a smaller price. It's actually a $25, which I believe matches up with what's going for on Switch right now. That's not bad. That's not bad. But yeah, I think that's everything. That's everything as far as like indie world. So again, as I was saying, that's like a 7 out of 10 for me personally. People have like different opinions, especially in it becomes more polarizing like the more niche you kind of get. So I think when it comes to Nintendo Direct, yes, there's like a whole bunch of other games of different genres that they showcase. But I think with Indie World and Partner Showcase, that opens and expands like proportionally as far as like the demographic that you're targeting. So I think for a lot of people, you see some really cool games, but I think as far as like people's opinions about it will start to like differ quite a bit on like just as a general thing. So I think that's everything I wanted to talk about as far as indie world. Let me go ahead and jump us over to the more recent cancellation of games here. I didn't want to really be the one to bring it up, nor did I want to even see it. But to be fair, I did forget about this game. So, was it Avalanche Studios under Xbox, I believe, right? They were working on this game called Contraband. I don't know if there was any. Personally, I don't remember if there was any type of history that they have with like the Contraband as like a franchise or anything like that. I'm just not well like informed about that, but it got canceled. Make that another Xbox Game Studios title that gets canceled. It's kind of beating the dead horse with this one, but so what are we doing? What are we doing at this point? That's what kind of prompted the whole little title that I have here, which is like maybe we should just focus on smaller games at this point. And as like bigger developers, why not make smaller like games at this point? I get ambition, but like, well, maybe. Oh, actually, hold on. Before I even like jump into that, maybe it's just one of those things where you have like higher ups telling you to like make like good quality games out there. And if the sales don't show it, then you get penalized for it, even like if the end product is still really good. But you know, I know negativity bias is something that just kind of happens, but I'm looking at this, I'm looking at other things that are kind of unrelated to video games, like the whole V Shoujo situation, and how multiple other like faces are leaving that company, right, to become independent. And a lot of things that we've been kind of championing for when it comes to developers is for them to go independent and reclaim their stuff. And I'm thinking about also like what was it last year, if not like earlier this year, where I think this is kind of like a little bit of a side, but how Bernie Burns has like reacquired like Rooster Teeth. When they were under Warner Brothers for a good while. So I think they're just we're seeing kind of a push for like just independence upon like among creators, among like developers, and with whatchamacallit it. Obviously, they have agreements with Xbox and everything like that as far as like showing it off on Game Pass, but otherwise, Expedition 33 being like a smaller team and getting a lot of like getting a lot of popularity just as far as like how well it was executed as a whole. I think there is definitely a much bigger push in 2025 and maybe later on to see, smaller developers just thrive, smaller creators also like thrive, because at this point, like, as group stuff is like really cool, like, Tanuki Media and everything like that, but once it expands out here and there, obviously there becomes like a particular vision that you like aim towards as a collective, but then there's also like individual goals that people want to meet. As much as cool as it is to have everyone just point towards like one direction, it's also really cool to see like other projects just kind of bloom from like the individual standpoint. So I think what I wanted to say out of all this is that maybe we should just support the smaller like groups. Like, well, we always should, but also just like maybe we should put like a bigger like emphasis on that. Maybe make our voices a little bit louder and support that instead of like you know, identifying under one particular like flag, you know? And what I mean by flag, I just mean like Xbox and PlayStation or like Nintendo, but like just identify yourselves under like the individual like smaller groups. Like I know that Yacht Club Games is starting to become like much bigger, but they used to be like quite a bit smaller, right? And what they've like put out there as far as like Shovel Knight stuff in that particular franchise, that's super solid, right? I'm trying to think of another like team right there. I think are they called Berserk Games? But I also want to support what they're doing too. Let me see. Yeah, what's the actual Berserk Boy Games? They have I think two projects under the works. One is completed, which is Berserk Boy, but they also have whatchamacalls it? They're working on another project, which is kind of like a Mega Man Battle Network-esque type of like vibe. So I I'm all aboard, to be honest. I will completely support them if I had the bits. Oh, it's called Berserk Bits. So keep an eye out for that one. I'll definitely give it a shout out whenever I can. Funny enough, they also have like a bundle on Steam for sorry about that. If I blew you guys' ears out with that, I apologize. But let me see if I know Domesticated Ant Games. They're the ones who did Gravity Circuit. And I guess this other game called Retro to the Future. I don't know much about that. I'm gonna go and click on that. Or sorry, that's just a bundle. Sorry. So I guess for the most part, they've only made Gravity Circuit, which to be fair is pretty dope. But you can probably guess like where my alignment is as far as like my style of like games I like personally. But yeah, no, I would support that development. Berserk Boy Games, yeah, I would definitely support that. Um, Sabotage, ooh, I need a Messenger was so good, guys. I can't give them enough flowers for that one because that was just a game that I decided to play because it was on sale for like $4, and that was like the greatest $4 I ever spent on a video game. I coincide that with playing it on like my Switch Lite just to get a feel for like that type of experience. That was super good. That was crazy good. But they also have Sea of Stars, which kind of connects to the illustration I have here in the back, which is Zenless Zone Zero slash like Little Tokyo, but it was like designed by what was it, the illustrator or the artist behind Sea of Stars illustration stuff. Uh, really good. But I do need to play like Sea of Stars, is what I'm trying to say. And then just a bunch of other like names. I should really put them on a list. Like I should get into it like the Anaya levels and like list out like favorite like small team indie developers and just like put them on like on my banner of like these are the guys like I mess with, and like if I ever have the opportunity to like collaborate, if not just promote them. In fact, I'll just do that free of charge. So yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that yeah, we should probably support them. We should probably support like smaller teams, smaller games. Yeah. Especially when it's like, you see games that from your childhood that you really want to support and then all of a sudden they get canceled, you know. And that's kind of unfair. I understand that like those teams don't really have much of a say in, what higher ups want them to do, especially if they're the ones paying them to do stuff and they just kind of like cut the budget for that. Come on. Sorry, I didn't mean to like put a downer on like that particular portion either, but that's just kind of how it is, especially when, you know, I guess another title from first party get axed. Also, I apologize. I think I'm using my voice a little bit too much, so I'll kind of cut things short. I want to have like an anime corner here. Remember how I was saying that maybe we're not going to be talking about manga this time. I didn't omit anime corner. So, Let me just go ahead and start like fresh off because I see the nice time code there. Anime Corner. I been able to kind of sit down on a couple of bits of anime here and there, albeit it wasn't too much of what I really wanted to do. I remember the last time I talked heavily on like anime stuff, it was about talking about Witch Watch. It was talking about Doctor Stone. It was about Shield Hero, Dandadan. And to be fair, I've caught myself up with Dandadan, but I definitely have found myself kind of like falling in and out of like different shows. Clevitus is one of those. I don't mean to drop that one, and I will jump back into it. I've just been really busy. I've been having to be like really picky about like what shows I decide to watch on like my lunch breaks, because if I'm not too focusing on like what I'm trying to do, then I can watch like an episode here and there. So like Doctor Snow, I've been able to keep up with. Shield Hero, I've been make sure to keep my like eyes out for that one. The Reborn as a Vending Machine anime, I totally forgot it even had like a whole season. So I'm catching up with that one, and it ended up with an episode that kind of like turned the plot. So I'm actually kind of intrigued as to what they're trying to do. Because otherwise, a lot of like the intrigue there is just like, how is a vending machine trying to like navigate through the world? And well, it's navigating pretty fine actually. But Shield Hero, I gotta tell you guys, call this like not a midpoint review of it, but just like impressions so far. That first episode was actually pretty intriguing as far as, setting up things. It's kind of lost my interest here quite a bit. And I know that like as far as like the arc that they were trying to do, which is like Shieldvelt, it's kind of lost on me as far as like the pacing there. I think the individual character like moments are much needed, especially if you're expanding this roster. Give us a reason, but they're also kind of losing me on, Naofumi's like particular like, goals and whatnot. That might shift now that they're shifting over to a new arc within the season. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's a similar problem with, shows like Doctor Stone as well, where obviously there's a focus, but a lot of what like connects me to these shows is definitely the characters. And when you put more and more characters on screen, you start to like dilute that. And I don't know how I personally feel about that, but obviously, characters still exist, on and off screen. I just really love the dynamic of like, Senku and Taiju and Yuzuriya because, as like they're a core group, and then that just starts to like spread out even more so. And it makes sense because of how things are, but it definitely gives my like it definitely supports the theory that I have about like long running shows. Now, not all of them like kind of fit this, but I wanted to like just put it on my tinfoil hat and tell you guys about like this theory that I have, which is pretty much like shows get really engaging. They can really like grab you and call for your attention, but there's a certain part where like, they lose a lot of their essence by either adding more characters, focusing on different characters, or they get straight up political with things. Or rather like problems just exceed like their own like small world things. In which case with Dr. Stone, like a lot of the issues is just kind of like moving forward step by step, but now things have like expanded even more so. And it's the same thing with Shield Hero, where like it was about how Naofumi can like overcome a lot of, I guess, the reputation he has like built negatively and wasn't even his fault. So it's just him overcoming that. Now he's much more respected, but he's also finding himself nowadays in like similar situations. It's just kind of like a loop, but it's also not really like progressive or ever changing. I don't know. I'm down for the ride for the characters, but like I'm not too invested in like the story plots that they got going on here. But for something as simple and straightforward as like dealing with the waves, I guess that's still as welcoming. But I guess that's why. Well, but let me finish my thought. I guess that's why Dandadan is like so compelling to me right now. Is that a lot of like the events there kind of just stick. They don't feel like episodic per se. It's all kind of progressive towards something, you know. Iran, what do you want to say? Shield Hero needs to like pull back like the last two seasons. They were absolute garbage. I am inclined to agree with you on that one. I think there were some interesting things that they've decided to do with that. I like the whole aspect of them being transported to a different plane and then just meeting other characters from there. And I am kind of saddened to not see them anymore. So I'm already like kind of attached to those characters, but otherwise, it's kind of tough, I would not want to be in that meeting room. I would not have want to been like the one sitting down and writing out the plots here and there, because how do you continue to engage people in like what you're trying to do? And maybe that requires like a much more discerning eye for like these different works. Like I think Dandadan is doing like a fantastic job as far as giving a lot of personality, a lot of like characterizations really to like individual like folks. And it's been keeping it consistent, but at the same time, it's only been 2 seasons, right? It's only been 2 seasons. I know that people will heavily regard the manga, so I'll give it its grace for that one. And I'm also like really engaged with Witch Watch to an extent. I guess I'm kind of like Witch Watch is a little bit more like slice of lifey. It's definitely leaning towards it's going in a certain direction, but I do kind of like the lighthearted tone that it has, despite how serious it can get. So, I mean, that's not all the shows. I still need to watch like what was it, Takanopi like Original Sin, because that's only 6 episodes, and the message that they're trying to write with that one is pretty heavy. So I should probably check that out. And for what I'm hearing, that has potential anime of the year type of vibes. I should also watch Clevitus too. Continue watching that. I'm not engaged with Water Magician. I'm not gonna lie, but I will try to like keep up with that. And I should catch up on Vigilantes and actually start watching To Be Hero X. Should be watching that. I will say though, Dress of Darling has been like a breath of fresh air, to be honest. I just need to catch up on that too. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of other shows I should probably keep up with. They didn't introduce some of the new characters properly. Oh, you're right. Yeah, that was the problem with Shield Hero. I think season 3 at that point, because they just at a certain point they just kind of like dumped characters, and they might have further development later on. So I mean, I won't write them off completely, but it's tough when you have so many different characters. And I guess to appease an audience, it's kind of like how an individual would kind of like look at things. Like for example, I guess like I'm going to like a birthday celebration like later on, right? And with that, there's a lot of people, right? A lot of people that you want to focus in on, and that can be overwhelming, right? Especially when you're like just watching it, you could be binge watching these episodes too. But as you can probably guess, like with shonen stuff, like with Dandadan, for example, they're introducing like far more characters. Like, I mean, they're trickling in more and more, but there's definitely a good handful that you can kind of see. But I don't know how they treat it, how they handle it. It's just like by design, by the creators, by the creators. One Piece is like a good example of that, where there's a lot of stuff built into that. There are several characters in One Piece, but they have the grace of making it like connected but distant worlds from each other. It's almost I don't want to say it. It's almost Kingdom Hearts like, where it's their works within works, but you only like step in for like a little bit. You might get connected, but otherwise you still focus in on the main core cast of characters, which is really just the Straw Hats crew. And then you'll get connected with the other characters, but then you'll kind of cut off from them, for better or for worse, I think also, wait, to be honest, I feel like Pokemon kind of does that too. Like Pokemon can kind of handle that pretty well as far as like the characters, because there's like a whole roster collectively over the course of like Ash's run from Kanto all the way to like to Journeys. And the way that they kind of treat that is that like similar to the movies, it's like they go to one town, they deal with stuff there, they might see a recurring character in like the anime, but it's only for like that instance. And unless they have like a similar destination, like going to like Pokemon Championships or Pokemon League, then you won't really see them anymore. And, that's kind of okay. You know, it kind of depends though. Like if the character is compelling enough, then you might want to see them again. But. Also, sorry, Ibrahim, what we want to say, also want to see a new season for Spice and Wolf season 2. That show is absolute fire. I have not watched that. I should probably add that to the list. I should also add Apothecary Diaries to that list as well. There's a lot I should really add to my watch list. Maybe I should just start adding them right now while I'm on Crunchyroll while I'm at it. Windbreaker is probably one I should probably add to the list as well. So I'll add that. Oh, you know what? I did want to talk about this. This is the quickest aside before we go ahead and wrap up. I know that I've been almost yapping for about an hour. Technically going on for an hour for the stream. But I will go with this because it is part of a franchise that I'm starting to like a lot. It's the Atelier series, but real quick, Ibrahim, new romance anime that everyone is raving about. What's it called? Uh, Flora of Flowers. I have no idea. But I wanted to talk about this real quick because it has something to do with a little bit of preservation stuff. So Atelier Ryza, actually. So to kind of give everyone a quick rundown, what are you talking about? So there's this series within a high entire franchise. It's kind of its arc within itself. Called Atelier Ryza, right? It came out on Switch in like 2017 or something like that, 2018. I forget exactly where. I remember that it was a game that I was going to actually just outright just avoid like on Best Buy shelves until Phil had told me about that game, and turns out that it's actually really good. So I decided to tune in on that one. I had to buy it when it was actually kind of like rare, but I think I paid like $75 for like Atelier Ryza 1 as a physical for Switch. And then I'd later buy like Atelier Ryza 2 and 3. I played through 1 and 2. They're actually really, really good. I still gotta play 3. But the reason I'm kind of like bringing that up is because they actually had DX versions, which is pretty much like a collective, pretty much all the DLC that they've added, plus some additional add-ons. And it's actually pretty compelling because even though there's no actual physical plan or physical release for these DX versions, it adds quite a bit of content that I'm actually intrigued about, which is like adding like additional playable characters, adding some additional story bits that kind of connect the stories, all the games together. But it is digital only. And they're also going to delist the original Atelier Ryza 1 through 3 games because obviously they have like a much more like refined version like for all of it. I don't know how I feel about that because I have the physicals there. So those are obsolete. DX are like the ones you want to go for. But that is, kind of miffed about that. I'm not sure if they want to continue doing that, but it's just one of those things where, it's nice to kind of go back and pick up physical copies when you can. But obviously with like the Ryza games and some of the other Atelier games, it's like harder to pick them up because they become a little bit more scarce. So the prices go up for that. But on top of that, they decide to delist that, so it becomes even more like pricier later down the line. Which, by the way, I need to probably check in with Phil and see if he wants to get that physical for Ryza 3. Because I think he's missing that one. I do need to finish Ryza 3, and I kind of wanted to just play that on Switch too and just see how that plays out. There's a lot of games I need to pick up on my backlog. But I will say, though, the DX is pretty compelling. They have 2 characters in Ryza 1 that I was kind of curious about. Otherwise, 2 and 3 are pretty much like, oh, here are some characters that would make sense for you to play, but chronologically it makes sense why they wouldn't. But the first one's like, oh, interesting. So you play as like a supporting cast of characters that otherwise don't really have much of a say, but like as far as competitiveness, one of them makes sense. The other one's kind of weird, but just wanted to bring that up because I have really enjoyed the series thus far. Although I guess maybe I should like play the 3rd game at that point, but I just wanted to like bring that up because that was actually pretty important to me to cover. But I think that's everything. That should be everything. Yeah. Oh, I guess quick update as I and this would just be a toggle on something like really crazy. I'm definitely doing some budgeting, so as far as Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Star-Crossed World, Nintendo Switch 2 edition, that's not in that exact order, but that's part of the whole title. I was planning on picking up a physical for that one, but I decided not to, and I will pick up a physical for that later. So I'll probably play the entirety of that later. You know. Also, Ibrahim, what were you saying? It's called The Fragrant Flowers Blooms with Dignity. It's a wholesome romance anime. I can see if I see that as a real quick. Isn't it should be like the newest new thing. Let me see. Nope, that's not it. To be fair, like it could have like released like early on in the week. It also may not be on Crunchyroll, so it's like I'd be screwed at that point. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But let me see. I'm not seeing that. Let me actually pull it up because I'm actually curious. Uh oh, is it the one that oh wait. Is it about like it's gonna be super vague. Is it about the guy and the girl, but the girl's like super short, but they go to like neighboring like rival schools? Yep, it's that one. No, people are raving about this one. I have not had a chance to watch that. Is it on Netflix? It is on Netflix. That's why. I mean, I do have like an account there in the form of logging into my brother's account, but you know, yeah, okay, okay. I might wait a little bit longer for that one. I'm pretty sure they're doing what nowadays they're doing, which is just releasing the episodes like bits by bit. So that's a smarter move for sure. But it's just one of those things where it's like with Netflix, I remember that I had some weird I don't know, I'm just weird about it where um I'll just have like waves of like interest in a show and I might even like just binge watch it. But I'll also kind of have falling outs with like a show if there's something else that's more compelling, I check that out and I run out of time to check out this other show or something else catches my eye, so I watch that show instead of that other one, and it just kind of like compounds. But that's just me. But oh, actually, you know what? I was curious about this. No way. So sorry guys. Quick aside before we wrap everything up. Um, So what I typically do whenever we have like group like calls and everything like that, I will I'll start up a call on Discord with everybody. And you know, that's when everyone would just jump in whenever they can. Obviously this is a solo run, so I figured that Discord would just boot me out whenever. And it turns out they left me on call for the past hour. So it's like, whoa. I guess that's a new thing. Can they afford that? I'm just using their bandwidth. I'm using their service like that. And they usually cut me off for the sake of like, you know, just saving some like data here and there, but now they're like, F it, do what you want, King, and eventually people will jump in, right? Not my case, but you know, I appreciate that. But okay, guys, I let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Guys, so next time for podcasts, we'll be back. I'd have no idea what to anticipate for the following week. Let me see if there's any indication of there anything being big. There is the potentials for a Nintendo Direct. If that happens, I'd be super stoked for that. But otherwise, you know, I don't think there's anything crazy going on. So, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Um, and I will say, I think podcast should happen at the regular 1 p.m. Pacific time showing. Otherwise, if anything else pops up, then we might start to adopt like a 10 a.m. showing going forward. We'll see how it plays out. But for now, we'll go ahead and call it here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this one. This has been episode 553 of DangIT Prodcast. My name is Justin. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hashtag bye, everybody.